Today, we're getting into one of the questions that is on every small product business mind this time of the year. Right now, you might be asking yourself, am I ready for Black Friday? Is it too late to plan? What should I focus on if I don't have that much time? And how do you engage or re-engage a quietness and stand out in a crowded inbox? And how can you turn those new customers into repeat customers long after the weekend is over? We are covering all of that today in the podcast and so much more. Welcome back to Let's Talk Shop, the podcast for product-based business owners who want to grow their wholesale and retail sales with confidence and consistency. My name is Therese, and I am the founder of Small Business Collaborative, and I help independent brands implement and build simple sales systems that actually works, so selling feels more easy and more predictable. And today I am joined by Sarah Mathias from This Is Growth. I long admired Sarah's straight talking approach to business advice, and I'm so excited to have her here today. Sarah helps product businesses become more profitable, more memorable brands through smart and commercial focused marketing. She blends everything from brand, email content, ads, and conversation in a way that makes the whole picture feels clearer and more doable. If you've been feeling behind, overwhelmed, or unsure where to put your energy, this episode will help you get focused fast. Let's jump in. Hey, Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
For anyone who doesn't know you already, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and how you can help?
Yes, of course. So I am Sarah Mathias and I own a e-commerce consultancy called This Is Growth. And our typical client is a founder of a product business. And we work with them across many aspects of marketing. We do site build, site optimization, meta ads, email marketing, and just various aspects, as well as like strategy and just generally sort of helping with bottlenecks or any projects that they need to work on, any issues that they've got.
So this is your busy time of the year.
Very busy. Yeah, this is it. Yeah. I mean, it is a busy, but like for me, for clients, sort of most stuff's like planned now. It's a little bit of last minute implementation, but it's almost like planned now. So yeah, but it is super busy. Yeah, it is super busy now. And it will only get busier, I'm sure.
Sure it will. Sorry if you could hear my dog in the background. He's decided to start barking right now. And what are you seeing right now? So we're recording this pretty much bang on mid-November. Are most business owners ready for Black Friday and Christmas? Are some still figuring it out? I know the clients that you do the work for might be mostly ready, but how about this slightly smaller guys?
So I would say it's probably 50-50 because most people would hope to be all planned and sort of like done by now with the plans. But as you know, the reality is, plan last minute just because of, well, it's the time, isn't it? And they're spinning so many plates at once. And then it's the uncertainty of, what should we do? Trying to decide. And then before you know it, it gets really busy around you. And there's a lot of noise, isn't there, with, other brands that are going live at Black Friday. So I would say it's about 50-50 really. There's probably lots of people who aren't quite sure or have sort of got like a sketchy plan, but haven't really implemented anything yet. Probably that is probably the reality. Like in an ideal world, they'd all be done, but they're probably not.
And do you feel that that is like it's just too late? Or do you feel like you can still do things that will have a positive impact on your year?
Definitely still do things. I think you can sort of always still do something. What I would say is if you've got, almost like no plans in place, then I think just, settle on something that is manageable. Like don't try and start from scratch now because it's just gonna, you're better to do something, really well than try and do everything like okay or a bit rubbish really. So I would say it's not too late. It's too late to execute some, elaborate plan. Obviously, it's too late to buy anything in or introduce anything new, really. So you're working with what you've got. And I think, if you look back and see what you've done previous years, or perhaps you've never even done it before, and you sort of thinking, well, what can I do? Looking around, seeing other people playing this event and thinking, like, how can this work for me? And I think it's, you're working with what you've got. So you're thinking, firstly, have I got overstocks of anything? Is there anything I want to shift, get rid of? Anything I'm not going to make again? Anything I'm not going to buy into? Because this is the prime time really to, clear through on that product. And even if you only get your cash back out of that, if it's stock that's like sat there that you just want your money back out of. The thing about Black Friday is, even if you don't play into it majorly, customers are there waiting to spend the money. And you've got the footfall, you've got the eyes on the business, and you've got the people waiting, they're actively wanting to spend some money. Even if they think they're not, they're sort of knowing that this is the spending, here on in now till January. It's like spend, isn't it? So I think you definitely want to take advantage of that in some way. But I would rather execute something, really well on a small scale than try and sort of, start from scratch, because it can be quite overwhelming as well as a business owner this time of year. It's a lot.
So overwhelming. And, especially I think if you're a maker and you also make your product, your time is even more stretched at this time of the year. Not that I'm saying that not all small business owners are, but it adds another complexity, I suppose. If someone has very limited time, are you seeing that they can do that has the biggest impact? Kind of like weighing up time versus what can help.
So I would say in that instance to completely focus on email. I would say that is definitely, you're going to get like more bang for your buck, basically focusing on email. Because if you think of almost the two groups of customers, like simplistically, you've got like the new customers, the complete cold traffic who've never come across you before. Then you've got the people who've bought from you before. Obviously, you've got the people in the middle who you're sort of nurturing, might be familiar with you on socials, might be on your email list, but have never bought. But, the people who have bought before, they are the ones that you are going to get more money out of. You definitely want to cover both, and Black Friday is about both. But ultimately, I would focus on the retention and, bringing that existing customer back to buy again. And the quickest and cheapest way of nurturing them is definitely like via email. There's no other two ways about it. So if I was saying, focus on one thing, it would be, in manipulating your list and segmenting your audience in there and really being, quite, specific about who you are reaching out to over that period's time. Even pulling out the people who've always have spent the most, have shopped the most frequently. Even the people who've shopped before, but like not recently, you can bring them back again. But ultimately it depends on, your product and what you are selling. Because if you are, say, a business that relies on that new customer recruitment all the time, then obviously going back to that returning customer, there might be nothing for them to buy, almost, depending how you are set up. So as long as you've got other products that your existing audience can buy again, then they are easier to, get revenue from than new people, really.
And I think there's a lot of worry about sending too many emails this time of the year, because I think we all get a little bit overwhelmed with our newsletter, with our inboxes this time of the year. Not that I unsubscribe to anyone this time of the year. I think that's important to remember too. Is there such a thing as emailing too much during this time of the year? Is that a concern someone has to make?
I would say no. I would say email away. Unless you are sending, like 3 emails a day or 4 emails a day or whatever, then you might become a little bit annoying. But, most people, like a lot, what you've just said there, most people do worry about unsubscribes, and that is the biggest anxiety. Like, I'm going to send too much, they're going to, we're always scared of upsetting people. But if you think about what we often forget is that we are consumers ourselves as founders. We are actually consumers, and we often forget how we behave. You know, we think our customer's going to behave in a certain way when we actually forget how we behave ourselves. And most people will open their inbox, scroll through, and it's literally any email of interest you will, click on and open, and you will read. But aside from that, you just scroll through. Like you've just said, you don't actively really unsubscribe as such. It takes a lot for someone to unsubscribe. If you really think it through, like it really does take a lot for someone to do that. And it's often, 9 times out of 10, the reason they do that is because they've outgrown the brand. So, the perfect example is, it's something to do with like kids' product or whatever, and then your kids are old and have outgrown that product, or you're just not in that point in your life anymore and you just don't need that brand. That's often why people will unsubscribe, just to clear down the decks. But I think this time of year, the inbox is so busy, but ultimately it's how the communication is fed out. It's the main source. If you think about how you shop yourself, it's, unless you're thinking about something and you've particularly gone, you seek it out during that event, it's whoever catches your eye, really. If you think of all the brands you shop with that come into that inbox, there'll be some that are more, will just demand your open and your click more than others. And I think you've got to be that brand. And there's stuff you can do around making yourself more visible in that inbox, in the here and now. But I think, there's no such thing. The reality is most people are not going to send. Most people don't send enough. And that's true of any time of year, but definitely not enough over the Q4 period. If you think of that customer who's there waiting to spend, and when you can get them at various points of the day, I'll often see an email and I'm in the middle of cooking tea or whatever, and I'll put my phone back down and go about my business and just forget all about that. If that brand then comes back in my inbox and it's something I'm more susceptible to, I'm going to click and go through. But it's not annoying me. It's just, you just move on, don't you, really?
Yeah. I don't have any plans to buy anything for Black Friday, but I could definitely be persuaded. And I am most likely to be persuaded by probably an ads, because I don't scroll that much. I mainly watch people's stories. So, an ad between those, an email. And I think an email is probably the most likely. And I get emails daily from some of my favorite brands that I don't even buy that often from. Like my laundry detergent, I'm pretty sure they email almost daily. I don't need laundry detergent that often. But do I unsubscribe? Does it bother me? No, I just delete them.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, like you've just said then, I think, it's about being almost like front of mind, but also, you've got to be in the arena to win the sale almost. It's like, like you've just said, if they email you daily, it doesn't bother you. You just move on. But then when you're thinking the next time you're loading your washing machine and you think, oh, actually, I do need some more because that's running low. The minute that email comes into your inbox, there you go, you're in, because it means something to you in the here and now, and it's relevant to you in that moment. And if you think that's just you, one customer, how many people are they capturing the attention of daily or every other day that are in, ready to buy? And it's about being there when the customer is ready to buy. And that's the beauty of over Q4, because, we buy stuff that we will either wait for Q4. It's like the typical, remember Q4 and Black Friday, not Q4 really, but Black Friday was always about electricals, wasn't it? That's how it really started.
Yeah. TVs and dishwashers.
Yes, and remember, people would queue outside in physical shops and take boxes of a TV away. And that's almost how it started. And there's still that mindset of a bit of electrical, but also like waiting for that. Like the other day, I was talking about a new Hoover, and I was like, even me doing my job, I was like, oh, I'll wait till Black Friday, see if there's, Dyson's on offer or whatever. Like, I know better than this, but I still will think, well, I'm not buying it now because I know it will go on offer. It's going to be on offer, so I'll buy it then. And ultimately, if I'm thinking of buying that product, and actually when I go to buy that product, I don't see any discounting and there's nothing, it would make me think, well, shall I buy a shark then that is on offer instead of, you know what, it would make me think like that because it's,
Yeah.
quite a chunk of money.
Yeah.
Um, but if I see something for that particular brand, it's there when I am ready to buy almost. And I think it's just being front of mind, really, isn't it? It's just being louder than normal.
Yeah. And I actually think that for certain products, even if I got email during this time, thinking about it from a consumer point of view, even if there wasn't a big offer, if it wasn't like, take my laundry detergent, for example,
Yeah,
if I needed laundry detergent during during this time, even if there wasn't an offer, as long as that reminder was there, I would still buy it. And for them, I guess it's like reminding me when I need it rather than me running out and then having to go to the supermarket.
exactly that. And like a strategy for that type of business is probably, to keep that email frequency high for that particular reason, because it's like every hour of every day someone's going to run out. So it's just being, front of mind, really, isn't it? And I think, yeah, I would just, stay as visible as possible. It's a very noisy time. And whether it comes naturally to you as a business and even as a founder, you've got to become a little bit louder during that period's time. And like you said then, even if you got an email during that time, you might actually buy it. And that's an important point because it's become a little bit more frequent, I'd say, over the last few years, but people launching new collections during this period. They're
Yeah.
not discounted, the full price, but you've got the footfall. If you have a physical store on the street, so if you're listening to this and you're just purely e-commerce, imagine you have a physical store and all it is that street's busy with people, busier than it normally is. So, you do the maths, you're going to get more people that come through the front door, more people who pick something up, more people who stand at the checkout waiting to buy, more people who buy. And it's an equation, really, isn't it? So I think when you've got more eyes online, on your brand, willing to spend, then even like a full price launch, they can buy into that. And it's not because they think they're getting a deal. They're just susceptible in the mindset. And that's so, so important that they're ready to buy.
Yes, we're spend happy this time of the year, a little bit more than other times of the year. Which kind of
Yeah.
leads me into one thing I wanted to ask you was if you can't run big discounts or if you don't want to run big discount, what are some alternative ways to make Black Friday work for you as a brand?
So I think two main things spring to mind. One is bundles. So putting together maybe products that is essentially, full price really, but a small saving because they're getting the perception of that offer. And then the other thing is maybe a free gift. So it doesn't have to be that aggressive discount heavy, promotional activity, but it can be the perception. It goes back to that mindset because a lot of selling, all of selling is psychological, really. So it's about, because we can all live without these things. None of us are really selling life-changing product. If we didn't buy any clothing again, the world would still turn around. We'd still be okay. It's we don't need them to survive.
I mean, we would still have things to wear.
Exactly. It's all nice to have. So we're all selling things that if you really, get down to it, no one needs these things we're selling, but we all want them. So it's built around that desirability and the psychological persuasion of the brand to draw us in, get our like buy-in. So we enter into that sort of ecosystem. We might end up on the mailing list, follow them. Then we're going to be nurtured by the content. We might be dragged along by almost like the bandwagon effect. We see other people in whether it's our community, other people we follow, whoever using, buying, talking about this product. And then we get led down the garden path. And it's not to say, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Ultimately, with great persuasion, you can almost be persuaded to buy a really crappy product. You can sell anything really.
With that, thinking about that, those messages, like I know I don't see them as much anymore, but is there any other messaging angles? Obviously, bundles, like you mentioned, or free with purchase is like great offers. But in terms of messaging, some brands in the past used to go down like more of a, you know, if you buy during this time, we give to charity or other stories. Is that still something that works, or is that kind of like past?
Think, yeah, I do still see people doing stuff like that. And I think you absolutely can, as I say, because people are more susceptible to spend anyway. They'll think, well, it adds almost like, the cherry on the cake. It just sweetens the purchase almost. The thing is, what I think everyone needs to understand is that when we buy something, we're looking all the time without even realizing we're looking for justification around that purchase. So whether that because it was on offer, I bought it because it was on offer, I bought it because it was a good deal, or I bought it because it made me feel good, which is like what you've just said. Like some of that type of activity will then make you feel better for making that purchase. But ultimately, when we want to justify all the purchases that we make, and that's why, big events or sort of like themed events work really well. Like a birthday sale works better than 20% off for the weekend because it's no story around that. There's no concept we can buy into. But like the founder is having the birthday is just a little bit more interesting, a little bit more intriguing. We don't even realise we're doing it. But I think, so back to your question around those type of sort of strategies to increase revenue over that period of time, or rather than, choosing not to play into the typical Black Friday event, it will definitely increase your revenue because, as I say, people are susceptible to the spend. So if they're going to buy then, if they're thinking of buying, they'll probably buy then because of that. But I think it will never compete with that discounted offer. I just don't think it will. And I understand for many various reasons, from a brand's perspective of why they would not wish to play into Black Friday. But I think, it's not going to drive as much demand as a tailored discounting. Everyone wants an offer. Even the people who sit there and say, they're not bothered and it's very commercial and it's, overspending, it's waste. I totally understand all of that, but actually they'll buy something. It's those people who will buy. So it's very different. I think this applies to anything to do with the customer, really. What they say they want and what they make out the noise around is very different to how they act. And it's paying attention to how they act rather than what they say. Not in all instances, but there's often not a linear path between the two, I think.
Yeah. One thing that I've been thinking a lot about over the last few years is like calling it what it is. As small business owners, we get so caught in about Black Fridays and Amazon thing, and we come up with all these alternative names, which has great intention behind them. But does the actual general consumer care that much? Is it easier for them if you just call it what it is, like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, because they all know what that is? Or do you think these alternative wordings gets as many opens, for example, for newsletters?
So it's a bit of a controversial topic, that, isn't it? Because I'll probably get
Yeah,
shot down
no,
for my
sorry,
answer
I
on
just
this.
sprang
It's all right.
those.
I will get shot down for my answer on this because no, they do not work as well. They do not work as well. Like there's no way I can
This
be
is what
convinced
my
otherwise.
opinion is too, so I would
Yeah,
also get shut down.
yeah. So they do not work as well for a few reasons because, like I've just said, there's no storytelling around it. There is storytelling around it. That's not right. There's almost no. The customer has got an expectation without even realizing, like it's just inbuilt by now. So they will expect, Black Friday. So if they don't see that, you are almost putting a point of friction in place, even though, customer can understand the concept of naming it something different or doing something different. Actually, we want to make it as easy as possible for them to understand that activity or that promotion. I also think, and this is a little bit controversial, but it just doesn't land the same. It's just, I think just calling it what it is the best thing to do for the revenue. Now, whether you choose to do that or not, obviously that's up to you as a business owner. But I think to understand that it will not land the same. You're not going to get the same impact. And something that I talk at length about is that, you've got to understand the customer recruitment element of Black Friday. Ultimately, that's what you are doing. You're serving your retaining, customer and cohort to allow them to shop again, to increase that lifetime customer value. But you're also actively, recruiting new people into the business. And often, well, it's not often, that is invaluable, because long term, that will allow that customer to come back time and time again, hopefully. And, the net effect is you've recruited more people into the business. Therefore, there's more people to, come back. And it's simple as that, essentially.
I also think that, a small business, I know it's a little bit controversial, but, there's no reason why we have to let Amazon have like Black Friday, right? If using that word is going to get you more sales than using a different word, I mean, of course, you have to be alongside with your values, but in this instance, I would rather see small businesses win than get so caught up with just one word that is to the consumer a general word. It might mean something else to you as a business owner or as a person. But yeah, it was interesting to get your take. So sorry for putting you on the
No,
spot
don't worry.
about it.
I totally agree. I totally agree with what you said. Yeah. And I think, it's up to them. But ultimately, I think it is easier to explain exactly what it is. And unfortunately, whether you like it or not, it's not going to go anywhere. It's
Yeah.
not going to go anywhere. So you may as well make hay while the sun shines, and, get your revenue out of it, because that's what we're all here for, really.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of these value-based campaigns that I see around this time of the year, they're not big enough. They're not doing enough. So they're not getting enough attention. So they're just going to affect your sales, not someone else will just get the money, basically.
Absolutely. What you've just said there, we all have in us like an inbuilt amount that we're prepared to spend. We all have a different tolerance of, if you go out now and buy a pair of jeans or a dress or whatever, you have got sort of like a budget inbuilt in you without even realizing, like, whereas like I might spend far less than you or far more than you just generally. So we've all got this budget sort of inbuilt, and someone else will get the purse if you don't get that. But another point you mentioned there around, it just made me think about, I see a lot of chat around. So, okay, it's like the small business world, but we see a lot of huge businesses that do not discount anyway. And they definitely don't play into Black Friday. And I think sometimes businesses look upon them and think, well, they're not discounting. So we want to hold our own because we want to feel like we are more exclusive or maybe more premium, or we don't want to cheapen our brand. That's the most common thing you hear. We don't want to be a discounter. We don't want. But what the difference is they have such strong brand awareness and such an outreach into, the width that they can market is huge compared to you. So actually, when it comes to that customer recruitment, they can absolutely go out and say, or most of them won't say a thing, but if they go out and say, well, we don't play into this event, they're not going to lose customers, and the net effect of that profit in the bottom line is still the same for them, because ultimately throughout the entire year, they recruit all the time, just because of the span that, that they can reach.
Yeah.
So I think you can't compare yourself to that activity, because that is just different. It's a different arena, really. It's so different.
So different. It's so true. It's like Apple or Mac, like I'm still going to buy reluctantly, I will still be buying my like Mac products, even though I'm like, I don't wanna, but I will still, do it because everything is on Apple and it's just communicating better. Another thing I wanted to mention was that, if you're going to do something value-based, it needs to be big enough for a customer to actually care enough to still want to spend money with you. And I think the only good example I've seen recently is last year. I think it was a sports brand or active brand that sent out 500 empty PR boxes.
Yeah.
And they asked influencers and creators to fill them and send it back to them. And then they gave it to people that needed the products more. And they're doing the same this year. And I think that campaign is good enough for me to I mean, I don't even know the brand that well. But if I was one of their customers, that would probably get me to spend with them because they did something like that. Because I
100%.
almost want to spend with them because
Yeah.
of that campaign. But most of us cannot do things like that.
Yeah, how clever was that though? That was so clever because ultimately it will have lifted all their full price revenue and all those influencers and people talking about that brand. Like, think of that ultimate recruitment, like into the ecosystem of that brand, like
I mean,
absolute genius.
it's so good. It's so good on
Yeah,
so many levels. It's
so
like
many
feel
levels.
good. It's
Yeah,
recruiting. It's like
yeah,
nurturing. It's everything.
it's everything. It is everything. And I think if you know, you know, they have stuck to their values really because they've not wanted to recruit, they've not wanted to play into that event, but they've almost like, they've still netted a lot of revenue from that. So it almost like is a little bit of a contrast. But I think, you know, on a smaller scale, that is stuff brands can do. That's like in a similar vein, I think. I think you've just got to be, you know, pretty, like you said, it's got to make sense, hasn't it? And it's got to be impactful and feel like solid, you know, it's built on solid foundations. But another thing around that is, and I've had this conversation maybe 2 or 3 brands, like since, you know, since everyone started talking about, you know, since summer on, they've never played into Black Friday and they've always been a brand that said, you know, we don't do it, we don't discount, blah, blah, blah. And now they're like, I think we should. And it's turning, but they feel a responsibility not to, and they feel like they can't go against what they've previously said. And it's that internal battle then, isn't it? Of like, how do they go about communicating this to the current audience? It's hard, isn't it?
I can see why they feel like it too, because maybe they've grown, maybe their margins improved, but also I think that a few years ago it was almost taboo to discount if you were a certain brand, whereas now we've had this cost of living crisis for quite some time. It's almost like if you can do it, it's a nice thing to do for your loyal customers, I suppose. It's almost changed how we view discounts has almost changed, I think, a
I
little
think you're
bit.
right there, yeah. But then I also think because of that, in a way, people expect a discount. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like chicken and egg, isn't it? It's like, I do think people expect a discount because we all like a discount. Just, you know, even just because it justifies the buy. But even if you're buying a car, you want a discount, you
Yeah.
know, like I know I definitely do. So it's like
Yeah.
you almost expect it to an extent. And I think, you know, also it's, you know, the mindset of the founder, I think has shifted a little bit, as in you've got to build some of that price in. You've got to build some of that margin in for that said promotional activity, you know, because otherwise you are taking the full hit. And, you know, the majority of businesses just can't afford to do that, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. If someone's listening to this is all well and good. I haven't emailed my list for quite some time. So what can I do? Do I just all of a sudden start springing daily emails on them for the next few weeks? Would that not hurt me? So, like, what would you say?
So I think definitely you've got to email, you've got to bite the bullet and get on with it. If you're going from a standing still almost and you've not emailed for a while, I would sort of, you know, introduce that sending cadence over time. But ultimately, like if you're looking to make the most of the next, you know, 6, 7 weeks, then you haven't really got time on your side, so to speak. But I would segment the audience. So I'd start by sending to your warm audience, i.e., anyone who's been on the site recently, anyone who's purchased before, anyone who's going to, you know, recognize the brand straight away in the inbox. And I would start with those people really. And then, you know, branch out and build that, you know, widen that net really. But I think the main sort of like stumbling block in that instance is often the founder, because they build it up in the head that no one's going to want to hear from them. They don't know what to say. They're going to appear in someone's inbox and someone's going to say, you know, have an email for months and here they are asking for a sale, you know, and it's not, no one's bothered. People just get on with the day. Like no one thinks twice about that type of stuff.
No one even
And no one will even know
notices.
you've gone.
Yeah.
They won't even notice you've disappeared. So it's, you know, I just pick up from where you left off and just build up that, you know, that sending again.
Do you have any like go-to advice on creating subject lines that kind of actually stand out?
Yeah, so a couple of things on this. If you've got any promotion or any sort of, you know, really relevant part of that email that is either time sensitive or just generally like the biggest message in there. If it was a promotion, I wouldn't mess around putting it inside the email only. I would absolutely, you know, if you're doing 25% off that subject line, something around that, don't try and, you know, quietly go into their inbox. I'd go in with a bang and I'd put that subject line as that discount because ultimately it will get more opens, which means it will get more clicks, it'll get more people on the site, it'll get more people into the basket, it'll get more people into checkout. It's, you know, it's a equation at the end of the day. So you want more people to open that mail. So obviously opens very, very important. So anything like that, I wouldn't mess around to try and hide it or keep it in that subject line. But then apart from that, aside from that, you want to give some intrigue into that subject line, you know, something where they think, well, what is that? And then they click through it, you know, they open to see what that thing is. You know, I always say like to clients, when you are going through your own inbox, this is another thing we're not very good at, even though we're in this world ourselves, is paying attention to what makes you open. What makes you open that email? You know, what are the subjects and the things that make you open and think, oh my God, what is that? You know, versus the ones you just happily scroll by on. There is a, you know, a fundamental difference there. I'm obviously always on the lookout for stuff like that. I'll save it in the notes on my phone. I'll screenshot stuff. I'll, you know, constantly saving stuff all the time. And there is a big difference. And I think when you can create that intrigue for them to open, that is like number one. But, you know, these days, I was also, don't be afraid of using AI and putting in, you know, explaining the content of the email and asking for, you know, 3 or 4 subject lines. Okay, you might not go with any of them, but it will give you a starting point to focus your mind. And that's often, you know, people sit opposite a blank screen and they're like, I don't know what to type, I don't know what to say. And it will just kick you off. And then you're away, then you can just think of it really.
I think that's such good advice. Once Black Friday weekend is over, what should brands focus on next?
So as part of your sort of like analysis after Black Friday, you know, realistically, it's in the new year when everyone goes sort of back to work, kids go back to school, that you're doing this. You're going to look at your Q4 performance and your Black Friday performance and going to look at, you know, how many people shopped versus even last year, how many new customers shopped with you over that period of time. And then your focus is on bringing those customers back. So anyone who shopped with you over Q4 for the first time, they might have come in through, you know, social media cold because someone shared something. They might have come in via an ad. They might have come in just from word of mouth. They might have been on your email list for a while, but then they've purchased during that period's time. You want all of those people, get them together in a segment, like pen them together. And you want to make sure that over Q1, they all buy again. Now, this is very, you know, generalized and it depends what you sell. But if you can get, you know, if you recruit someone between now and the end of the year and you don't get them back in that first 3 to 4 months, you might never get them back. Like the chances are massively diminished, you know, over getting them back. So the focus should be on getting those people to return over that Q1 period, really. As I say, depends what you sell, if you've got something to sell then. But you really want to get them back. You really want to increase that lifetime customer value and make sure that they are buying again. Because once they've bought the second time, the chances of them increasing that frequency is much greater than if they just buy once. They can just walk away quite easily, really.
So, do you think, in your opinion, it's worth spending there to get them to buy again, whether that is an offer or, well, I suppose an offer is the easiest way?
An offer is often the easiest way, but it's not always the right way. And that's very much dependent on what you sell and what your margins are like. And ultimately, if you are a if you are a brand that you think, most people can come back 4 or 5 times a year, then yeah, you can, often give them that offer because it's well worth it over that lifetime or that 12 months. Whereas if you are a brand where, you might give them a whopping discount to recruit them in Black Friday, you might not want to go in like that again. But the other thing you can do if you're clever about it is to almost like, depending on your products and your collections and how many SKUs you've got, is look how you've recruited them. So it might be like on one particular product that you did a deal on or whatever it was. So if you brought them on board from one particular product, what else do you know that you've got that goes with that product or that is the natural next thing to buy almost, and offer them something on that, because the likelihood of them buying is greater, isn't it? And it makes sense to them. It's a much more tailored and personalised experience because they bought X. I know they're going to buy Y, so let's give them Y. It just makes sense. But depending on your margins, yeah, there's no harm with going in with that offer. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could even just be 10% or a financial amount off, depending on that AOV. That often works well as well.
Even
But yeah,
free
definitely get
shipping,
them
I'm
back.
always like,
Yes,
I
it
always
can
go for
literally
free
be that.
shipping.
Yeah,
Even if it in reality ends up being like a 1% discount or
yeah,
something, I'm still easy like that.
yeah. And do you know what? On that point, like you've just said, so free shipping is like a sweet spot, but it won't be for everyone. So it's like if you did like free shipping, a £5 voucher off a certain amount of spend, and maybe, I don't know, another thing, and then you flex them throughout 3 or 4 months. So if you're susceptible to that, you buy. If you're susceptible to that, you buy, and you sort of a catch all.
Yeah.
Obviously you're not going to get them all back, but you'll hopefully get them,
Yeah,
at
within that
some point.
quarter.
Yeah.
How about say, I know we already kind of moved all to next year, but we also have December and things like Small Business Saturday and stuff. Is there anything that brands should be doing short term, I suppose, after Black Friday?
I think there is stuff you can do because obviously, yeah, Black Friday, same as last year, it's going to run into December now. So there's almost like no respite. There used to be like a bit of a week between, and now it's just like straight on in. So before you know it, you've got Black Friday out the way, and then you feel like you're talking about last shipping dates, and then everyone's off. But I think, really sort of going in on gifting, you're always going to get those people that shop in December. I mean, I'll be honest, I am one of them. I'll tend to buy like all my kids' stuff sort of now, and then anything else I'm in December, really. I'm quite last minute with it. But I think, gifting obviously is just so important. It's important here on in, but it will become, because almost like the clock's ticking them. So they're the things that I would go in on. And that's that's going with almost like the flow, isn't it? That's what most people are actively that's the problem most people are trying to resolve during that period's time. But I would say I would play into anything you can, whatever you can play into. You're going to have that traffic, you're going to have that audience, and you're going to have that customer who is willing to listen, spend, and is more susceptible, really. So I wouldn't ignore any of that sort of activity, really.
I tend to say, and I don't know if this is bad advice, but if you haven't done much already, doing something is better than doing nothing. Like, don't try not to overthink it so much and just do something.
Yeah, you know what? I do totally agree on that. And the other thing that I always say is, it sounds harsh, but it is totally true when you really give it some thought. There's not enough people watching you for you to be concerned about making a mistake or getting something wrong or ruining the brand. Like, hear that so often. Like, most people, aren't at that stage where it is a concern. And obviously, as a founder, you're very much in the weeds and you're very much in your own head about every single little thing. And the reality is the customer or the potential customer or the whoever isn't in it like you. They're not seeing what you're seeing. They're not understanding it like you are. And they're not bothered. They they just don't care. People just don't care. Like they see something 1 minute and then they, like a goldfish, they're off and they've forgotten what they've seen. No one's even that bothered. So I think, but we do get inside our own heads. And it's this, I often see it, I always call it like, it's this over explaining all the time. We're
Yeah.
constantly feeling we've got to get on a story and explain why we've gone quiet on social media. It's beyond me why anyone does that. We're just explaining everything all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think
Yeah,
I even said yesterday, like, I've been MIA. I mean,
yeah,
there's no one cares about that really. Like, it's just like, it's like a habit.
but we do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think,
It's so true.
it is. But I think, just don't, what is it that the royal family who say, like, don't complain or explain, just get on with it. Like, no one is bothered. No one is bothered. And no one
Yeah.
even notices.
No one notices. No one cares as much as you do, as much as you.
Yes.
We want them to care and see all the
Yeah,
lovely things we do, but they can only see those things if we make enough noise.
exactly. Yeah. And even then, they're not going to see every single thing.
Yeah. And they're
You know,
not all going to care. Not every
no,
customer is going to care.
no, not at all.
Um, what are there any patterns you see amongst brands who are doing really great right now if they don't have a huge list or a huge budget for ads?
I think the main thing is planning and being organised. I would say, I always work with clients on a trading calendar and I'm always so big about it. And it's so simple. It's such a simple document. It's essentially a calendar. You're going to plan out all your activity on it, in front of, customer facing activity and then everything beneath the surface that is like behind closed doors. You're going to plan it all out. And I think it's so simple, but it's the typical sort of cliche of like when you put pen to paper and you plan it out. Funny enough, it happens, or it'll happen better than not planning it out. So even if you get through 70% of it, you wouldn't, if you didn't have that plan, you might cover 30% and the rest will just live in your head forever. It's not going to happen if you don't do it, if you don't plan it out. And we're all
Best
sort of,
part with it, you can repeat it next year almost
yeah,
identically.
exactly. Yeah. And that's exactly what we often end up doing and just changing it up a little bit. But if you haven't got, it does make your life, like you've just said, yeah, going forward, it makes your life so much easier. And I think the ones that I see who are, they're just executing it with more precision. And that's not about having more budget and doing anything fancier. It's just about really knowing what they wish to do and where they're going. And they're more, I'd say, organised, but it's almost strategy, isn't it? It's like they know this activity will net me this, will get me this. This is the reason. There's always got to be why you're doing this, why, and answer that question. It's got to make sense for the business, hasn't it, really? And I think just generally planning everything out and having that strategy will give you, overall, it'll have that bigger halo effect really on your revenue.
Yeah. I could not agree more. I think it's such a good thing to do and so missed so often. So that's such good advice. If someone is listening and can only do one thing this week, what should it be? To boost sales, of course.
Email. Definitely. It's the cheapest thing. I would do it over posting on social media. I really, really would. Like, obviously, you want to keep that energy going, but email is just so much more powerful. Like, you're getting into that main place of communication that isn't personal, so it's personal, but it's not like, a friend or family or whatever. It's the next tier down. And you've got the option, you've got the ability to tailor it more to their requirements, whether that's just because they've never bought, whether because they have bought before, whether they've bought a particular product. You can personalise it a lot more. And I think it's just the cheapest form. You can reach so many people, and the likes of Klaviyo, if you've got a big list, yeah, okay, it feels expensive, but it shouldn't feel expensive because you should be getting that back that should be your aim, if nothing else, you know, to get that back and much more every month and really work that list to get as much revenue out of them as possible. So email without a doubt.
Is there one automation or like campaign that every small business owner should have in their business?
Yeah, so there's probably a few, but I would say the absolute one that you cannot miss is probably like one of the like abandoned flows. So whether that's, and it might be different to your business if I had to really pinpoint one, but whether that's basket, whether that's checkout, one that no one really ever, I mean, it's definitely more important this time of year, is almost like browse abandonment. So they've not even added to the basket really, but actually you're going to see that traffic and those sessions lift during this period's time. So they are like almost like the biggest pocket of an audience that is partly susceptible, maybe not always, because obviously you're not accounting for people who've bounced and things like that, but if they give you the email address and you can go back to them, then you're going to, you know, assume there's some desirability there from them. So this time of year, you know, browse abandonment actually, you can, you know, is a net you can put out to catch, you know, a fair amount of people really. And the aim is always, you know, you want that sale, that is the ultimate aim, but ultimately you want them onto the site, browsing the site, adding to basket. And like I say, it's a numbers game. So the more people you feed in at the top, you know, you're going to get more out at the other end, really.
Yeah. And before we go today, where can people find you and work with you? And how can people work with you?
So the best place to find me is on Instagram, and I am This Is Growth Ecom over there. And we've also got a website, which is thisisgrowth.co.uk. The best place to figure out sort of what we do is probably via the website, but I do give a lot of sort of free content out on social, and my email list as well is probably the best place for learning for free, almost like just consuming the content, which is, you know, really valuable. But to work with us, just simply just get in touch if you think there's something that, you know, can help you with. I absolutely love a DM. I love a chat. So, you know, please feel free to do that as well. Generally love getting to know like new people and finding out more about, you know, different businesses and different founders as well. So don't hesitate to get in touch. And I love a good chat. So
I am loving your Instagram too. Like I think you always make posts that makes me think. So it's a really good
to know.
Starting point, I think. And I will of course pop all the links and all that in
Amazing. Thank you.
as well. But thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and having such a long chat. I've already kept you longer than I said I would.
Don't worry, I could go all day.
I could talk about these things for forever, I think.
Yeah.
We are also hosting a workshop together on Thursday. If you're listening to this episode kind of real time when it was published, I suppose. Sarah is doing a workshop and it's called From One Time to Lifetime, which is all about retention strategy. So you're very welcome to come to that. That will be on Thursday, the 20th of November at 12 p.m. It's completely free to attend. So we'll pop the link for that in the show notes as well. But thank you so much, Sarah, for coming and joining me today. And thank you to everyone that listened. And if you want to share where you're listening, if you're listening while packing orders and make sure you tag both of us. And so we can have a nosy. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.